The hardest part of any task is simply starting. We all know the feeling, the endless cycle of thinking, planning, and overthinking, but never actually diving in. And yet we've all heard the advice, just do it. But how many times has that felt easier said than done? Here's the truth, motivation is a fickle thing. Some days it shows up uninvited, and other days it leaves you high and dry. What sets successful people apart isn't waiting for motivation to strike, it's their commitment to taking action, no matter how small, even when the motivation is nowhere to be found. When you take action, especially in those moments when you feel least like it, you create the momentum that pushes you forward. It's in the doing that motivation often catches up with you. So how can you break through the barrier of inaction when your mind is screaming at you to wait, procrastinate, or avoid? That's where strategy steps in. In this episode, we're going to explore 10 powerful, actionable strategies designed to help you take action, strategies that go beyond generic advice and are rooted in real, practical steps. These strategies aren't about hoping for motivation to appear. They're about actively creating the conditions for progress, no matter how much resistance you're facing. Whether you're struggling to tackle a big project at work, start a new workout routine, or just push through the inertia of procrastination, there's a method here for you. If you're ready to get out of your own head, overcome hesitation, and finally make progress, these strategies are the game changer you've been waiting for. Let's jump in and explore how you can take control, eliminate resistance, and start moving forward, one step at a time. Because sometimes, the best way to find motivation is to stop waiting for it, and start taking action anyway. Limit your time for decisions. Imagine you're about to start a project, but instead of diving in, you pause, weighing every possible decision: when to begin, where to work, what tools to use, which playlist to listen to. Each decision feels like another barrier, and soon, the sheer act of choosing paralyzes you. This is where the strategy of limiting your time for decisions comes in. It's not about rushing, but about freeing your mind from the mental clutter that accompanies endless deliberation. Think of it this way: every decision, no matter how small, requires energy. The more decisions you make throughout the day, the more your mental resources are drained. It's like a cup filling with water. By the time you reach your task, the cup may already be overflowing with indecision and doubt. But if you limit the number of decisions you make, you preserve your energy and focus on what truly matters: taking action. This strategy is about setting the stage in advance. You decide, once and for all, when and where you'll work. It's a commitment to the space and time where your focus will bloom, and once that decision is made, you honor it. There's no more standing at the crossroads, wondering whether it's the right moment. You've already chosen the time, the place, and the purpose. No need to question it again. By limiting the decisions you need to make, you clear a path for your brain to focus on the work, not the nuances of what to do next. This reduces the overwhelm that can come from excessive choice and helps you resist the lure of distractions. Instead of debating whether or not to begin, you simply start, because you've already committed. Marcus Aurelius spoke of the need to direct our will with intention, to streamline our thoughts. When we limit decisions, we act with purpose, eliminating hesitation and paving the way for consistent action. You've chosen your moment, your environment. Now, you don't have to waste time contemplating whether it's the perfect moment, because the moment you've chosen is the perfect one to act. So, next time you find yourself stuck in a loop of decision-making, remind yourself, don't wait for the perfect choice, just limit your options, and take the plunge. Trust the decision you've already made, and use that energy to move forward. Create a start ritual. A start ritual is a powerful tool that helps eliminate the mental clutter and hesitation that often accompany the beginning of a task. By incorporating a consistent, intentional action into your routine, such as lighting a candle, setting a timer, or listening to a specific song, you condition your brain to recognize that this is the moment when work begins. It's a simple act that serves as a mental cue, signaling the transition from distraction to focus. When we don't have such a ritual, we often spend valuable time deciding when to begin, negotiating with ourselves about the optimal conditions, and getting caught up in the mental inertia of starting. Overthinking the beginning of a task can lead to procrastination, where we endlessly debate the best approach, or we delay starting because we're unsure about the perfect environment. A start ritual removes this mental friction by providing a pre-established, habitual cue that bypasses the need for decision-making. For instance, you might have a ritual where you begin every writing session by lighting a specific candle that you associate with focus and creativity. The smell and glow of the candle become a signal to your brain that it's time to enter work mode. Over time, as you repeat this action, it becomes ingrained in your brain. The moment you light the candle, your mind shifts gears, and you're ready to dive into the task at hand. This ritual reduces the need for willpower or self-talk to start. Your mind simply recognizes the cue and begins working without hesitation. This ritual can be anything that works for you, something that, over time, becomes tied to your productive state. It might be the sound of a particular song, a brief stretch, or even a simple action like putting on your work shoes. The point is that it's consistent, so when the ritual is performed, your brain knows it's time to focus. Additionally, the psychological power of rituals can also help prime your mind for deep work, reducing distractions and keeping you anchored in the task. This type of mental conditioning means you don't have to rely on motivation or willpower to start. You've already built a structure that makes beginning automatic. By creating a start ritual, you build a seamless bridge to action, bypassing overthinking, self-doubt, and the paralyzing need for perfect conditions. In essence, a start ritual transforms the act of starting into something that's effortless. It becomes less about forcing yourself to begin and more about honoring the consistent cue that prepares you for the task at hand. It reduces the friction and mental energy required to shift from one state of mind to another. With a well-established ritual, you not only make the task at hand easier to start, but you also make it more likely that you'll continue with momentum and purpose. Over time, your brain begins to associate the ritual with success and focus, creating a positive feedback loop that propels you forward. Setting specific outcomes is one of the most effective ways to cut through the fog of procrastination and create a clear path forward. When you focus on vague or general goals such as write a report, you're left with an overwhelming sense of uncertainty. There's no concrete starting point, no tangible sense of accomplishment, just a daunting mountain to climb. The sheer size of such an undefined task often results in hesitation, avoidance, or analysis paralysis. Instead of aiming for something as abstract as finish the report, narrowing your focus to specific, actionable outcomes helps break the task down into manageable chunks. For example, write the introduction and the first 2 sections is precise, achievable, and gives you a clear target. The beauty of setting specific outcomes lies in its simplicity and clarity. When you define your goal with this level of specificity, you take away the mental fog. You don't have to think about everything at once, only about the next step in front of you. Your brain knows exactly what needs to be done, and this cuts through the decision-making process that often holds us back. There's no ambiguity. You're not left wondering, what should I be doing right now? The task at hand is clear, and you know exactly where to begin. This approach also helps reduce the overwhelming sense of all or nothing that comes with large, undifferentiated goals. Many times we avoid starting a task because it feels too big to handle. We imagine the enormity of it and feel paralyzed by the idea of completing everything at once. But when you aim for smaller, specific outcomes, you eliminate the pressure of having to do everything perfectly or all at once. For instance, by focusing on writing the introduction and the first 2 sections, you've already cut the task into digestible parts. You're only focused on what comes next, and this makes the task feel less daunting. Additionally, by breaking your tasks down into clear outcomes, you make it easier to track progress. Instead of feeling lost in a sea of unaccomplished goals, you can see how much you've achieved with every section or milestone you complete. Each completed outcome, whether it's writing a paragraph or finishing a subsection, gives you a sense of forward movement and momentum. This constant progress not only keeps you motivated but also serves as a reminder that each small step you take adds up. Progress becomes tangible, rather than theoretical, and that's incredibly powerful. Another advantage of specific outcomes is that they provide clarity in terms of what needs to be done next. With a general goal, you may constantly question, What should I do first? Or, what's the next step? This leads to wasted time spent on indecision or reorganization. With specific outcomes, once you complete one task, you know exactly what's next, creating a seamless flow from one step to the next. By focusing on one outcome at a time, you also increase your ability to concentrate. Multitasking or trying to do everything at once often dilutes your focus, leading to lower quality work and scattered efforts. When you define the outcome, you can focus all your attention on achieving that one task, reducing distractions and creating a sharper sense of purpose. This ensures you're not just moving through the motions but are fully engaged in each step. In the end, setting specific outcomes not only helps you tackle complex tasks in a more structured, manageable way, but it also redefines your approach to productivity. Instead of feeling overwhelmed by a huge task, you focus on one thing at a time, building momentum and increasing your sense of accomplishment as you go. Each small, specific outcome is a victory in itself, and with each victory, you move closer to your larger goal. This focused, deliberate approach keeps you in motion. When you break a task into smaller, specific outcomes, it becomes more achievable. You eliminate procrastination by eliminating uncertainty, and instead of waiting for the perfect moment to act, you create your own moment to succeed. With clear outcomes, progress becomes inevitable, not a question of if, but when. Every step you take brings you closer to finishing the bigger picture, and in the process, you transform the way you approach tasks, no longer daunting, but a series of small, achievable milestones. Use single tasking. Single tasking is more than just a method for getting things done. It's a philosophy that enhances the way we engage with our work and the world around us. In a time when distractions are everywhere, notifications, emails, and the constant pull of competing priorities, single tasking offers a rare opportunity to reclaim your attention and direct it entirely toward one endeavor. This approach isn't about doing less, it's about doing more with greater clarity and intention. When you single task, you remove the mental chaos that comes from dividing your attention between multiple activities. Our brains are wired to focus intensely on one thing at a time, but we often challenge that by juggling several tasks, leading to fragmented thoughts and diminished efficiency. The act of focusing on one task enables you to dive deep into the details, explore nuances, and solve problems with greater creativity. Rather than skimming the surface of multiple tasks, single tasking allows you to immerse yourself fully in one project, making the work feel more satisfying and meaningful. This deep dive into a single task is like tuning an instrument. Each note, no matter how small, contributes to the overall harmony. When you're fully present, your efforts become more deliberate, precise, and productive. The natural resistance that arises when you split your focus is removed, and the task at hand feels less like a mountain to climb and more like a journey to enjoy. Time spent in this focused state often leads to what psychologists call flow, a mental state where your skills align perfectly with the task and the work becomes effortless. It's the sweet spot where creativity and productivity fuse, and hours can pass without you even realizing. In a world where we are trained to value speed and multitasking, single tasking offers a refreshing alternative. It allows you to work at a pace that feels intentional, rather than hurried. The beauty of this approach is that it encourages progress over perfection. You're not rushing through tasks to get to the next, you're concentrating on one thing, making it better with every step. This doesn't just improve productivity, it enhances the quality of your work, leading to results that are richer and more refined. However, achieving true single tasking requires eliminating distractions. It's not just about focusing on one task, it's about creating an environment where that focus can thrive. This means shutting out the noise, whether it's silencing notifications, clearing clutter, or setting boundaries with others. By intentionally carving out space for deep work, you create an ecosystem that supports your ability to stay fully immersed in what you're doing. It's not about willpower, it's about creating conditions where focus can flourish. Beyond work, single tasking has a profound impact on your overall well-being. In a world where we are constantly multitasking in every aspect of life, from eating dinner while scrolling through our phones to having half-hearted conversations, we deprive ourselves of the richness that comes from being fully present. When you give your full attention to one activity, whether it's a meeting, a book, or a conversation, you're not just checking off boxes, you're deeply engaging. This presence creates more meaningful moments, fosters deeper connections, and nurtures a sense of fulfillment that the scattered approach of multitasking often lacks. Single tasking also challenges the modern myth of constant productivity. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that the more tasks we complete at once, the more we're achieving. But true productivity isn't about quantity, it's about impact. By focusing on one task at a time, you make every action more potent, making each moment count for something greater than simply crossing items off a list. The key isn't in doing more but in doing what matters most, and doing it with purpose. In short, single tasking is about realigning how we approach both work and life. It allows us to tap into our natural ability to focus, work with intention, and produce high-quality outcomes. When you give your undivided attention to one thing, you unlock not only your own potential but also the possibility for a richer, more connected experience of life. It's a reminder that, often, less is more, and that in focusing on one task, we can accomplish far more than we ever could by spreading ourselves thin. Option elimination is a strategy grounded in simplicity and clarity. It's the conscious act of reducing the number of choices you face, not just in what you do but in how you do it. In a world brimming with distractions and endless options, it's easy to feel paralyzed by the sheer number of decisions we must make. From what to work on next to how best to organize our time, every small choice requires energy. This constant decision-making drains your mental resources and diverts your focus, making it harder to take action. The beauty of option elimination is that it allows you to cut through the noise. By consciously narrowing your choices, whether it's closing irrelevant browser tabs, putting your phone out of sight, or streamlining your task list, you remove the cognitive clutter that typically bogs you down. Each distraction that you eliminate frees up mental space, allowing you to direct all your energy toward what truly matters. When your focus is no longer split between competing choices, you're able to engage with your work more effectively and with greater clarity. The process of eliminating options doesn't just make things easier, it brings a sense of relief. Instead of being overwhelmed by an endless stream of potential tasks or information, you can now see the one thing that needs your attention right now. The decision to focus is no longer a battle between competing choices, but a clear commitment to a single path. This helps you build momentum, as you're not wasting energy on what could be or might have been. You're working with intention, moving toward a singular goal, and letting go of everything else. Think of it as clearing the clutter in a room. Once the extraneous items are removed, you create a space where focus and productivity can thrive. You give yourself permission to ignore the irrelevant and embrace the present task, which leads to a deeper sense of accomplishment and satisfaction. By reducing the number of choices, you simplify your mental and physical environment, empowering you to take action swiftly and with more purpose. Marcus Aurelius, in his Stoic wisdom, knew that distractions and external forces only have power over us if we let them. We control our response to the world around us, and part of that control comes from how we manage our environment. When you eliminate unnecessary options, you regain that control. You're no longer at the mercy of your environment, but rather you are shaping it to serve your highest goals. This approach has profound psychological benefits. By minimizing the constant onslaught of decisions, you prevent the mental exhaustion that often leads to procrastination. Instead of wrestling with options, you reduce the friction between thought and action, making it easier to get started and maintain focus. You may find that you accomplish more in less time, as your mind isn't scattered in 100 directions. In essence, option elimination isn't just about removing distractions, it's about creating an environment where focus and clarity are the default. By simplifying your choices, you allow yourself to be fully immersed in the task at hand. It's a reminder that we don't need more options to feel empowered. Sometimes, what we truly need is less. By narrowing our focus and minimizing distractions, we regain control of our mental energy and take deliberate steps forward. Asking for self-permission is a deceptively simple but powerful strategy that flips the internal dialogue from one of resistance to one of agency. Often, the hardest part of starting a task isn't the task itself but the mental barriers we create. These barriers are fueled by fears of imperfection, doubt, or simply the overwhelming weight of expectations, whether they're self-imposed or external. The idea behind asking for self-permission is that instead of waiting for an ideal moment, feeling ready, or seeking motivation, you intentionally give yourself the go-ahead to begin. This strategy works by dismantling the subconscious pressure that prevents you from starting. When you ask yourself for permission, you create a mental shift where you acknowledge that the decision to act is within your control. You take ownership of your actions, liberating yourself from the paralyzing grip of perfectionism or hesitation. Instead of thinking you need to be in the right mindset, have the perfect plan, or have everything lined up perfectly, you simply say, I give myself permission to start, right here, right now. What's powerful about this approach is that it bypasses the paralyzing effect of overthinking. Often, we delay action because we feel we need to be fully prepared or perfectly equipped. But by granting yourself permission to take the first step, no matter how small, you eliminate the mental friction that comes with trying to do things perfectly from the start. This small act of agency acts like a mental unlock, allowing you to sidestep the fear of failure and move into action. The beauty of this strategy is in its simplicity. By focusing on the act of granting yourself permission, you create a sense of freedom, which can be particularly valuable when battling perfectionism. Perfectionists often struggle with starting tasks because they feel they need to execute them flawlessly from the outset. But when you give yourself permission to make mistakes, to do things imperfectly, or to start small, you take the pressure off. It's a permission slip to be human, to progress without the burden of perfection. Taking that first step, however small, sparks momentum. It's like the difference between standing at the edge of a pool, hesitating, and simply diving in. Once you've granted yourself permission, the initial resistance fades, and the act of starting becomes less daunting. You can always refine, adjust, or course correct later. The key is simply to begin, and with that first action, the pathway to the next becomes clearer. This practice can also be a helpful tool for combating procrastination. When the thought of starting something feels daunting, giving yourself permission to just get started, without the expectation of perfection, can make the process feel more approachable. In fact, the moment you allow yourself to start, even if you're not sure how it will turn out, you've already broken through the biggest barrier, the fear of beginning. By shifting the focus away from waiting for the perfect moment or feeling like you need to be fully ready, this strategy empowers you to take control of your own actions. It's a quiet but empowering declaration that you are in charge of your progress. The next time you feel paralyzed by the thought of starting, ask yourself, do I give myself permission to begin this? Once the answer is yes, the first step becomes an inevitable act of choice, and the task ahead becomes less intimidating, more manageable, and even enjoyable. In essence, asking for self-permission is about creating freedom within yourself. You relinquish the idea of needing the perfect conditions and give yourself the grace to begin in the imperfect, messy middle. This simple act of self-empowerment opens the door for progress and sets the stage for overcoming hesitation, one intentional step at a time. Targeted negativity is a powerful strategy that encourages lowering your expectations and welcoming the possibility of failure right from the start. It may seem counterintuitive, but by intentionally accepting that your first attempt might not be perfect, you dismantle the fear of failure and prevent it from holding you back. This shift in mindset is liberating because it removes the pressure to produce flawless results and instead redirects your focus toward making progress, no matter how small or imperfect. This strategy works wonders in combating perfectionism, especially in areas where the fear of producing subpar work often prevents you from even starting, like in creative projects or difficult tasks. The fear of failure can be so overwhelming that it paralyzes you before you even make an attempt. But when you embrace the reality that failure is not only possible but inevitable at times, it becomes easier to begin. You start to see imperfection as a natural part of the process, rather than something to be feared or avoided. Seneca's wisdom resonates deeply here. He reminds us that the fear of failure often hurts more than failure itself. Once you stop fearing imperfection, you give yourself the permission to experiment, learn, and grow. In doing so, you unlock a freedom to act, knowing that each step, regardless of the outcome, is a valuable experience that contributes to your overall progress. This mindset encourages you to build resilience, letting go of the obsession with perfection and shifting your focus to forward motion. The more you practice targeted negativity, the easier it becomes to tackle tasks without hesitation, fostering a cycle of consistent action, growth, and improvement. Setting clear priorities isn't just about organizing tasks, it's about sharpening your focus and transforming how you approach your day. In a world where everything seems urgent, the real art lies in discerning what truly deserves your attention. The feeling of being overwhelmed is often a result of trying to manage everything at once, and that's where prioritizing becomes your most powerful ally. By intentionally deciding what matters most, you reclaim your time and energy, channeling it into tasks that will have the greatest impact. When you focus on just one actionable task at a time, it's like switching from a chaotic, disjointed pattern of trying to do everything to a calm, streamlined process. It's not about abandoning the other tasks. It's about recognizing that only one thing can command your full attention in any given moment. This clarity eliminates the mental clutter that comes from constantly switching between competing responsibilities, helping you make real progress without feeling like you're running in circles. The beauty of this strategy lies in how it reduces the burden of decision-making. Instead of trying to figure out where to begin or feeling paralyzed by the sheer number of tasks, you simply ask, "What's the one thing I need to focus on right now?" With this question, you give yourself permission to let go of everything else, removing the weight of unimportant distractions. By narrowing your focus, you not only accomplish more, but you also do it with more intent and satisfaction. Prioritizing is a form of self-mastery. It allows you to gain clarity about your goals, which in turn helps you direct your energy efficiently. It's about knowing what to tackle first, what to leave for later, and even what to cut out altogether. As you work through your list with this newfound sense of clarity, you'll find that each task becomes less daunting. Instead of overwhelming yourself with everything you should be doing, you create space to focus on what's most important, which allows you to make meaningful progress with less stress. This approach also frees you from the trap of perfectionism. When you focus on one task, you can give it your best effort without the pressure of juggling multiple responsibilities. Over time, setting clear priorities helps you build momentum and confidence, as you start seeing the impact of your focused efforts. Instead of feeling pulled in every direction, you cultivate a powerful sense of control over your day and your life, knowing exactly where to place your energy for maximum effectiveness. In essence, setting clear priorities is about more than just completing tasks. It's about mastering your attention. It's about knowing how to direct your mental resources in a way that doesn't leave you feeling drained or scattered. By choosing what matters most and dedicating your focus to that, you not only get more done, you also find a deeper sense of satisfaction and purpose in your work. Surprise element. The surprise element strategy is about breaking free from the routines that can trap us in cycles of boredom and procrastination. When tasks start to feel monotonous or repetitive, it's easy to lose enthusiasm and motivation. This is where spontaneity comes in, introducing an element of unpredictability that revitalizes your approach, making each task feel new, engaging, and exciting again. By incorporating surprise, you disrupt the mental patterns that keep you stuck. The strategy encourages you to start tasks in an unexpected way, bypassing the usual sequence of actions that your brain has become accustomed to. Instead of starting with the first step in a predictable order, you dive into a random part of the task or approach it from a completely different angle. This sudden shift catches your mind off guard, stimulates creativity, and lowers the resistance you feel towards starting. For example, if you're working on a long, detailed project like writing a report, instead of laboriously beginning with the introduction, you might choose to write the conclusion first or tackle an interesting section in the middle. This randomness removes the mental buildup and anxiety of getting it perfect right from the start. It turns the task into something playful, like a puzzle where you don't have to follow a rigid formula. The beauty of surprise is that it shakes up the inertia caused by routine. When you follow the same steps every day, your brain begins to associate the task with effort, boredom, and dread. But by throwing in an element of unpredictability, like deciding to tackle a task at a different time, using a new method, or simply doing something unexpected within the task, you reawaken your engagement. The brain is drawn to novelty, and this mental jolt can spark new ideas and insights. Another powerful aspect of this strategy is that it reduces procrastination. When you always follow the same predictable steps, it becomes easier to resist because you anticipate the mental struggle and effort. But surprise subverts this. When you change things up, you bypass overthinking and the mental resistance to the usual routine. It's like jumping into a cold pool. If you overthink it, it becomes daunting. But if you dive right in, the shock of the cold water helps you get used to it quickly. Incorporating surprise also fosters creativity. This approach encourages you to think outside the box, as you may encounter new challenges or opportunities within the task that you hadn't anticipated. You begin to see things from a different perspective, breaking free from rigid habits that may have hindered your progress. Creativity thrives in an environment where there's room for exploration and spontaneity, and that's exactly what this strategy encourages. The end result of introducing a surprise element into your tasks is a sense of freedom, excitement, and renewed energy toward your work. You allow yourself to break the cycle of monotony, reduce procrastination, and create a sense of fun, making the process of completing tasks feel far less burdensome. In summary, the surprise element strategy is all about recharging your approach to tasks by injecting spontaneity into your routine. It helps you bypass resistance, stimulate your creativity, and break free from the mental traps of boredom and monotony. By embracing unpredictability and starting in an unconventional way, you make your work more engaging and find yourself moving forward with momentum instead of hesitation. 10. Start ridiculously small. The start ridiculously small strategy is designed to conquer the mental roadblocks that arise when faced with overwhelming tasks. It's easy to get paralyzed by the enormity of a project, believing that you need to dive in and tackle it all at once. This sense of the task being too big, too daunting, or too complex can create an insurmountable mental barrier, leaving you stuck in the limbo of procrastination. The solution? Start with something so small that it feels almost laughable, something so easy that there's no real excuse not to do it. The beauty of this approach lies in how it redefines the act of starting. Rather than trying to summon a surge of motivation to jump into the entire task, you shrink the action to the point where it feels trivial. This could be as simple as opening a document and typing the title or reading just a single sentence of a book you've been avoiding. By focusing on these minuscule actions, you trick your brain into thinking, "This is so easy, I can definitely do it." The pressure is off, and you're no longer overwhelmed by the idea of tackling the whole task. This tiny beginning is incredibly powerful. It's about breaking the mental inertia that keeps you from moving forward. Once you've taken that first tiny step, you create momentum. It's like a snowball rolling down a hill. It may start small, but the more it moves, the more it grows. After you open that document, you might find yourself writing the first sentence, then the next, until the task suddenly feels much more manageable. Starting ridiculously small removes the mental resistance, which often stems from the belief that the first step must be significant or perfect. The psychological principle behind this strategy is known as behavioral momentum. Once you've taken that initial action, even if it's something as small as typing a title or stretching for a minute, you create a psychological snowball effect. You've made progress, and your brain, now accustomed to success, naturally seeks more progress. The more you act, the easier it becomes to continue. In addition, perfectionism is often an unspoken enemy when we face daunting tasks. We fear that if we don't execute something perfectly from the start, we've failed. But by starting small, we remove the expectation of perfection. You no longer have to worry about making mistakes or producing subpar work, because the tiny action you're taking is just the start. It's about building momentum, not achieving flawless results right away. This strategy also has roots in the wisdom of Marcus Aurelius, who wrote that we waste too much time thinking about what a good person or perfect action should be. His point is that action, no matter how small, is what truly matters. The smallest step is infinitely more valuable than waiting for the right moment or the perfect conditions. By starting ridiculously small, you shift the focus away from the overwhelming task and back to the simple power of action. In practice, starting ridiculously small is a strategy that works on any task, no matter how large or intimidating it may seem. Whether it's a creative project, a work assignment, or even something personal, this strategy can be applied. When you begin with an absurdly tiny step, something so small it feels almost too easy, you bypass your resistance to starting, slowly chip away at the task, and soon realize that small steps lead to big results. In essence, the start ridiculously small strategy is all about eliminating the mental obstacles that prevent you from getting started. By making the first step so simple, so small, and so easy to accomplish, you break the cycle of overthinking and procrastination. The smallest action leads to momentum, and from that momentum, growth follows. So next time you find yourself stuck, remember that the key to progress isn't waiting for motivation or the perfect moment. It's taking that first, ridiculously small step. 11. Be someone else. The be someone else strategy taps into the power of role-playing to help you overcome self-doubt and take action with confidence. It's a fascinating approach that allows you to momentarily step out of your own mindset and adopt the persona of someone you admire, a role model, a mentor, or even a fictional character. The idea is to temporarily become someone who embodies the traits you need right now: confidence, decisiveness, or boldness. This technique works because it allows you to bypass your usual limiting beliefs. When you're stuck in hesitation or consumed by fear, it's easy to think, "I can't do this," or "I'm not ready." However, when you step into the shoes of someone you admire, you temporarily shed those doubts. You no longer act from a place of fear or uncertainty. Instead, you act with the assuredness of someone who has the experience, the knowledge, and the drive to succeed. It's like borrowing their strength to fuel your own. The beauty of this strategy is that it taps into the subconscious mind. By acting as if you already possess the traits you seek, you trick your brain into aligning with that mindset. Imagine approaching a task with the confidence of someone like Steve Jobs, who is known for his bold decisions and unshakable belief in his vision. You don't have to wait for that confidence to magically appear within yourself. You can act as if and begin to embody those traits right now. This shift in mindset is often enough to overcome the internal resistance that keeps you from acting. For example, if you're facing a difficult conversation or presentation, think about how someone you admire, someone who's fearless and articulate, would handle the situation. Perhaps it's a charismatic leader, a bold entrepreneur, or a character from a book or movie. Ask yourself, what would they do? And then, act accordingly. Step into their shoes, embody their approach, and carry that energy with you into the task at hand. By doing so, you essentially give yourself permission to act confidently, even if you don't feel confident at first. This strategy is deeply tied to the concept of role-playing and behavioral psychology. Research shows that when we take on a new role, we often begin to adopt the attitudes and behaviors associated with that role. It's a tool used by actors, athletes, and leaders alike to perform at their best. The difference here is that you're not pretending to be someone else indefinitely. You're using this mental shift as a temporary strategy to help you bypass hesitation and move forward with more energy and purpose. Moreover, this technique is incredibly useful for pushing past perfectionism. Perfectionists often feel paralyzed by the idea that they need to execute everything flawlessly. But by adopting the mindset of someone who embraces imperfection, you can free yourself from the shackles of perfectionism. That role model you're stepping into might be someone who isn't afraid of making mistakes, because they know that action and learning are far more valuable than perfection. The be someone else strategy also makes tasks feel less personal and more like a fun mental exercise. Instead of dreading the task ahead, you're engaging in a playful act of self-transformation. The pressure of being you is lifted, and the focus shifts to embodying the qualities of someone you admire. This shift reduces anxiety, lowers expectations, and makes the process of taking action much more approachable. By using this strategy, you not only gain the courage to start but also strengthen your resilience over time. As you step into the mindset of someone confident and capable, you begin to cultivate those qualities within yourself. The more you practice this technique, the more those traits naturally become a part of your own behavioral repertoire. In summary, The Be Someone Else strategy is about momentarily stepping into the mindset of someone who embodies the confidence, clarity, or decisiveness that you might feel lacking. It's a powerful way to overcome self-doubt, push past fear, and take action with purpose. By adopting a role model's mindset, you trick your brain into bypassing hesitation and embracing a more empowered version of yourself. Next time you face a challenging task, ask, "What would someone I admire do?" and act accordingly. You might be surprised by how quickly you break through the resistance and move forward with newfound confidence. The key takeaway here is that action generates its own momentum. You don't need to wait for motivation or the perfect moment. Start now, even with the smallest step, and let momentum take over. Whether you break tasks into manageable parts, eliminate distractions, or surprise yourself by diving right into the task, the most important thing is to begin. As Marcus Aurelius wisely said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realizing this truth gives you the strength to control your actions and break free from hesitation. Your mind is your greatest tool, and by mastering it, you can build resilience, push past self-doubt, and create the life you want. So, which of these strategies resonates with you the most? Try one today and see how it transforms your approach to action. Remember, every small step counts. Starting, no matter how imperfectly, is the hardest yet most important part. Thank you for tuning in, and as always, keep taking those small, bold steps toward the future you desire. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.